Hello, everybody. It's Zach here from RealEstateLicenseWizard.com. Today we have a super interesting video planned. Today we have an actual real estate agent on our channel doing a full interview with us. Today we have Spencer. Spencer, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey Zach, what's up everybody? Thanks for letting me be here. My name is Spencer. I am a real estate agent of about 4 months now. So I actually met Zach in college, and he happened to have a real estate license prep business, and so it really fit perfectly. We really hit it off, and I ended up going through his course and passed my exam on the first try. And I've been an agent for about 4 months now.
Awesome. Well, that's why we're here. I want to hear about these 4 months, and I am sure tons of people on our channel want to hear as well, especially since not only did we have a review with you on our channel, but we also did our video last time where we discussed kind of how your exam went. And now, we're 4 months now in the future, and it's kind of cool to see the whole evolution of Spencer progress before our eyes. So I have a bunch of questions for you, so let's just get into it. So first and foremost, what surprised you the most about your first month? So just your first month in particular, what surprised you the most?
Wow. Probably kind of just a shock of how much there was to absorb and how many different things there were to do to get started. It kind of just hits you all at once. And my first week was, my head was spinning. It was just a fire hose of information and all that. So I thought that it would be a lot easier, I suppose, or at least I would be a little more organized, but it was pretty chaotic. Yeah.
So moving forward after that first month and then the second and third, fourth, was there anything that surprised you as well? Like as you kind of got used to these things and being a real estate agent?
Just kind of how hard and competitive it is. And I mean, I went through college and I kind of set my own schedule, and I did really well and studied hard. But getting into being an agent full time and just transitioning into that kind of the full time job, college was pretty difficult. So motivation was hard, and
I'm
procrastination
sure.
was real.
Right. Call back to the last video, that procrastination, right? So what is something that you learned, like specifically, what is something that you learned through these first couple months?
Well, really the first week and the first month, the biggest shock was that it's kind of all on you, and you are your business. And if you don't make it work, it doesn't work. So that was kind of the biggest shock, not relying on anybody else to go out and get business for you. And then just all the different technologies and processes and different people involved in the real estate transaction process was a lot more complicated than I thought.
Oh, that's cool. So do you think when you're talking about, not to get too sidetracked, but real estate technology, like how important is it, like your understanding of technology? Because we have a lot of people that are kind of hesitant or afraid of these things. I mean, now that you've been doing it for a while, is it easier in terms of like the technology specifically, or is it still
Yeah,
difficult?
yeah, kind of. I mean, there's still a lot. There's a
Mhm.
lot of different accounts and programs and software, and then social media and marketing and all that. But after a few months, you kind of just start picking up one thing at a time and just get more organized and get all the different softwares and things set
Mhm.
up, and you kind of get used to it. So it really wasn't bad. It's not horrible.
Oh, well, it's not horrible. No, yeah, I get what you're saying though. That's good to hear though, because again, we have a lot of people that are kind of afraid of a lot of these things, but that's good that you're getting used to
Yeah,
it and you're kind of fully understanding.
I mean the CRM
Mhm.
is pretty complicated, the one we use. So
For
there is a lot to learn.
for those of you guys who don't know what CRM is, that's customer relation management. So that's a particular program that they
Yeah.
use. Just so everybody knows, because I know people ask about that. But what do you explain a little bit more about your CRM?
Well, mine is kind of specific to the brokerage, so
Oh
they
yeah, you
provide
don't
their
have
own.
to give names,
Yeah.
but I meant like
Oh,
how,
okay.
like that process, like do you think it's a good CRM? Like
Oh,
are
yeah.
you enjoying it? Like,
Yeah.
was it
It's
hard to learn? Things like that.
fantastic. It's really it's really complicated, and there's a lot of moving parts, and so it's kind of just figuring out what works for me. And what I kind of realized is that a lot of the agents kind of pick and choose the technologies they want to use,
Mm-hmm.
and they just stick with it. And they do really well with that instead of being on all of the platforms and all the different softwares. You don't really have to do that. You just kind of find what works for you and focus on that and run with it. And so that was a lot. Learning that in the next couple months after I got my license was a little more calming, that I didn't have to learn everything all at once.
Yeah.
But the CRM, you just kind of pick and choose what you want to do with it, and
Mhm.
it only works as well as you do.
Well, that's awesome. And I think that's an important lesson in business, is you want to focus on what you can do right, and what works for you, and what you prefer, and really double down on that, because so many people are trying to do 100 things at once, when if they just focus on 5 things, they
Yep.
could be a lot more successful. So that obviously goes with real estate technology. So now, not to be negative, but do you have any regrets, your first couple of months? Like, did you do something where maybe you're like, oh no, like I shouldn't have done this? What do you think?
Uh, Probably mostly procrastination. I mean, I kind of hit the ground running the first week and the first
Hmm.
month, and that was pretty stressful. And I was on top of things, and then it started kind of setting in, and I started procrastinating a little bit and not following as tight of a schedule. And so I've had to do it over again. Probably do more early on and just really fill your day full time as much as you can. Get a solid schedule, because any time that you don't fill, either you'll fill it with something else, or somebody else will fill it for you.
Right.
And so if you don't set your schedule, that was kind of the one thing that I probably should have done a little bit better, was having a better work schedule.
That makes sense. And that's really good advice. Now, to go with that, you talked about a little bit like your schedule and whatnot. A lot of people, they love the fact that they can be independent, relatively, in real estate. Now, do you find yourself feeling independent, or do you kind of feel a little tied down with some of your commitments? Or are you like, yeah, this is what I wanted. Like, I finally got my independence, and are you excited about that? Like, how do you feel about the term independence and your career right now?
I mean, I think it's great. I really like, now that I have clients and I have appointments and things that I have to keep up with. I'm working. Sometimes I work till 9 o'clock at night, reviewing contracts. I was on the phone with a client at 10 the other night, weekends, things like that. It's kind of a nonstop job. And so it's, in a way, it's nice to have the freedom where you can kind of go out and do what you want when you want. I can go to the gym at 11 and nobody else is there.
Right.
Um, but if you don't set your own schedule for yourself and follow it, you really lose track. So you still kind of have to be your own boss. And that's one of the toughest things, is setting a schedule for yourself. But there is a lot of freedom and independence, and a lot of realtors that I know that I work with can go on vacations anytime they want, and it's not as big of a deal. So there's kind of positives and negatives to both of it.
Oh, cool. Very, very nice. I think that's a good answer too. I think when you look at things, obviously there's going to be positive and negatives in everything. And when we're talking about independence, especially, I mean, everybody loves that word independence. And I think maybe that's ingrained in our DNA, being that, we all live in America and the
Yeah.
United States or whatever. But really, independence can be a double-edged sword, because you are independent, where you get to make, your own commitments, schedules, things like that. However, ultimately, if you make a mistake, that's on you.
Yep.
So, that's one of those things that a lot of people, do have to figure out. And, it's not for everybody, but for the people that can do it, I mean, I always hear that they love it. And that's seems like the same boat for you. So what's something that you wished you knew before you became an agent? Is there one thing in particular?
Um, well, particularly this year, 2021, I wish I knew that it was probably the worst year to become an agent. Um, Other than that, more generally, that it's a lot of work. Um,
Mhm. Why do
and
you think, I don't mean to cut you off, but why do you think it was such a hard year?
uh, First of all, there's a lot of real estate agents out there. It's a pretty low barrier to entry, and everybody knows a real estate agent, so there's a lot of competition.
Hmm.
And then this year, because of the crazy real estate market is so hot, listings are flying off. It's really hard to get listings because
Hmm.
nobody's selling their house. It's hard to get buyers. Um, and so it's pretty tough to get clients out there now. But uh, sorry, I apologize. Was your specific question again? Kind of
It's
rambled off
okay.
there.
No, I was just wondering specifically, what is something that you wished you knew before you became an agent? And you mentioned the fact that, right now you're getting licensed during a very difficult time. Obviously, so then I guess I should change the question a little bit. Do you wish that you maybe got licensed earlier then, before this happened, so that you kind of got some experience? Or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I got my license like 5 or 6 years ago when I started college.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
know then, but yeah. Um, if even if you're working a job, it's totally worth getting your license because you still have to take 6 months.
right.
And that's kind of the hard thing that I learned is it does take 6 months to build up clients and things like that. And the more people you know, the better off you're going to do. Um, so yeah, I kind of wish I'd known that um, to build up more relationships focused on business and kind of just start sooner, start before you're ready.
Right, right. I think that's really good advice. Um, they use the term "jump right into it" for a reason, because the sooner you start, the easier it is, and then the sooner you start, the sooner you can start making money, and then hiring
Yep.
people, and then it snowballs. Um, so I guess on the topic of hiring people and kind of like working and things like that, I did want to ask you a few questions about your brokerage. So, was there a particular reason why you chose the brokerage that you chose? We have like tons of students that go through obviously the same process, and I was just wondering what your thought process was on that, and if you had any advice for people.
Yeah. Can I say the brokerage names on here?
Yeah, of
Is that
course.
okay? Okay. I mean, when I started out, it's kind of the top two now were Keller Williams and EXP. But I interviewed before I took the test because in Ohio, you have to have a broker sign off before you can take the test and
Hmm.
before you can get your license. So a couple weeks before I took the test, I interviewed probably 7 different brokers and a couple different offices and multiple different teams. And that was a really great experience just talking to as many people and agents and brokers as I can. So I talked to, uh, Keller Williams, uh, EXP Realty, Howard Hanna, Century 21, all the major Berkshire Hathaway places like Coldwell Banker, things like
Hmm.
that. And it really gave me a great perspective on that. And honestly, I chose the one that I did because they have a local office here. And I'm with EXP now. I like their technology and their commission splits. I'm on a team and I have great team members and coworkers, and it's local. And so
That's
it was
great.
really great personal fit. It's just what worked for me.
Yeah.
So I think kind of what works for you as a person.
Right. That's good to hear. Um, so I guess on that, we did a poll on the channel, and I asked, when choosing a broker, what is most important to you? Now, trading options was the first, the
Okay.
number one answer at 48%. Commission splits was second at 32%. Then culture at 14%, and the last was other at 6%. Does
Okay.
that sound about right to you? Those percentages, and was there something that in particular out of those four options that really you particularly were focused on when deciding, what brokerage to go with?
Um, yeah, I'd probably say more. I was leaning a little more towards the culture.
Really?
Um,
The second to
then
lowest answer. Could you explain a
yeah,
little bit?
yeah, it's a little odd. So
Listen,
um,
there's no wrong answer here. And
okay.
for everybody who answers those polls too, there's no wrong answers when you guys answer those polls. It's just a discussion point, and it's also really interesting to kind of see where other people's minds are at, because that's how we learn things, by understanding everybody's different opinions and kind of learning from there. So
Yeah.
so tell me a little bit about how important culture is for you.
Um, well, I think kind of you are kind of the people that you're around, and so it was more important for me to be around people that were a little more aggressive and more uh, try go getters and just really motivated people. And so some of the offices that I interviewed with, some of them felt really corporate. They felt like I was just another employee, and that's not why I got into real estate. And I kind of chose the one that I did because there was a good team atmosphere. Everybody knew each other. Everybody was really willing to help each other, and they were all very motivated and committed people to their jobs. And so
Hmm.
I know if you're around people like that, you tend to be more motivated and committed yourself. So that was a huge advantage. And I mean, the commission split, everybody says don't pay attention to the commission split, but everybody pays attention to the commission split.
Right. It's one of those things. Yeah. That's a funny way to
Yeah.
put it. Um, well,
Training too.
yeah, yeah. I mean, so again, training was the number one answer there, but I
Okay.
can totally understand where A, B, or C would be important to somebody else. And I think with that poll specifically, it's also worth thinking about the fact that people are in different stages of their career. So maybe
Right.
in the beginning, training is much more important to you, but maybe further down the line, it's just all about commission splits and culture.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something worth mentioning as well. You know, there are a lot of people that hop around brokerages. There's no denying that. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, that's super interesting to hear somebody with a cultural answer. So thanks for the answer on that. So what stood out to you about that brokerage, and is the experience good so far? So you mentioned culture, but could you explain a little bit more about what really stood out to you, and was your experience good so far?
Yeah. I mean, actually, quite a few of the brokers I interviewed with, I seriously considered. Um, there's a local one here that was really good. People, culture was great, and the commissions weren't bad. They had some training. There's a lot of brand recognition in the area. Berkshire Hathaway, I talked with a great guy. So a lot of it came down to personal choice,
Hmm.
and I really like. They're newer. They're up and coming. They're growing
Hmm.
like crazy. They have a lot of technology, and the way that they're structured, agents are really willing to help each other. I know Keller Williams has kind of a revenue share type model, and EXP has kind of their profit share model. So agents, you can get a kickback for recruiting agents. And that was one thing that kind of scared me, is that it could potentially just be a bunch of people trying to recruit agents. But it really works well in that some of them are a lot more willing to help because
Hmm.
they kind of have skin in the game. Like my sponsor gets kind of a kickback when I do better, so they're willing to train me and help me out. And everybody's just been really open to answering questions as much as they can. Um,
So not to put you on the spot, but from your brief description there, obviously, I know a couple of people are listening, and they'd probably ask the same question. But you know, do you get the pyramid scheme vibe, or do you think that it is a good environment? I mean, seriously, I know,
yeah,
I guarantee, and you can comment below if you were thinking the same thing when you're describing that. But the idea of getting some sort of monetary bonus
right.
for recruiting people, that could lead to maybe a uh, situation where it's just recruit, 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 and it's
Yep.
not sell, 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 which depending on who you are, one is obviously more you know fulfilling than the other. Could you
Yeah.
kind of explain like why that's not the case, or maybe it is the case and you're just okay with that, or what are your thoughts there?
I mean, kind of. I know the company is trying to crack down on that, but yeah, it really did. I was concerned because it did look like a pyramid scheme. I mean, when you line it up, and you kind of draw it out, it
Right.
looks like a pyramid.
Right.
So
Right.
um, I was concerned at first. The company's public and they're profitable,
Hmm.
so that helped a lot, and they're still growing. So, but yeah, I mean, in the beginning, I had people from all over the country, other investors. I'm involved with real estate investments, and I
Hmm.
have people all the time. Hey, I'd love to talk to you about real estate and this new company. And yeah, I've heard it before. And it's
Yeah.
just a horrible recruiting process from a lot of people. So
Hmm.
that was a big turnoff, and it's real.
Yeah.
Um, but kind of the reason I went with the local branch that I did is because the guy who's running the team, team leader. He's kind of in charge. He wasn't pushy. He wasn't salesy. He just gave me the information, answered all my questions. If it weren't for him, I might have gone with a different brokerage.
That's awesome.
Um,
That's great, and that's what I like to hear too. Especially for people that are in the process of getting their exams all situated and stuff like that. They're going to go through the exact same thing that you are, and they all have these questions, which is why we're here today. But no, that's great. So I guess then to follow up, before we start talking about a couple other things, just to follow up on the whole brokerage conversation, do you think overall that your experience with the finding the brokerages was good, and or the one brokerage I mean, was good, and also do you have any advice specifically for people searching and making that decision?
yeah, I mean, my experience was great. I'm happy with the decision I made. I think I'm comfortable here. I could see myself staying with this company for a very long time. There's really no reason to switch.
Hmm.
It For advice, definitely interview a lot of people. I mean, I talked to 3 different Keller Williams branches, and
Hmm.
it makes a difference because you're under a different team leader or under a different managing broker.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, interview as many people as you can, different companies, and talk to different agents and talk to their clients if you can.
That's great
Yeah,
advice. That is great advice, and I've said that many times here before in the channel. Even it's funny. It's even when people are asking about maybe they failed the exam, and maybe they're looking for resources, specifically state. I tell people reach out to your local brokers. Like they have a lot of them have resources just
yeah,
there. They have like
yeah. You,
a stack of books, right, or something like that. Or maybe they could recommend a program, and that connection pays off immensely. And that correlates with what you said, with the interview processes and things like that. And I like how you always leave the door open. You're interviewing with all these people. In your instance, you're with one brokerage, but you never know. Maybe some day
right?
you'll
Yeah,
build a connection with somebody else and go somewhere else, or maybe they'll come where you are. You never know, and I think that that's a great way to look at it. Awesome. So to take a quick little turn, you mentioned that you went to college earlier, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that because we have many students that attend college and get their license after. Do you
yeah.
feel your degree is helping you at all? Or, if it is helping you, what it's helping you with? And kind of, talk about your degree a little bit, if you don't mind.
Um, well, actually started in graphic design, and then I ended up switching kind of to business, marketing, and advertising. My degree is actually in general studies, but everything was focused on design, advertising, and marketing in business. So you definitely don't need a degree to become a real estate agent. There are tons of agents who are really successful who don't have college degrees, and in a way, I kind of feel like I spent 4 years of my life getting a degree when I didn't need to. But it kind of taught me how to study and how to set my schedule and a lot of things about business and marketing and finance that I probably wouldn't have learned otherwise. So honestly, I think it's personal preference. I like to learn. I loved college. It was really fun. It was great.
Hmm.
Um, so I'd probably get a degree again if I had to do it all over again. I'd just get my real estate license sooner.
Awesome. That's a great answer. And I think that's a perfect way to put it. Is everybody has their own personal preference. And also, some people go into real estate not with these prior backgrounds. And if they do need to get that background, whether it be the finance or, the sales or the advertising, or in your instance, graphic design, which I'm sure helps you a lot now that you're an agent and you can kind of, make your own business cards if you want and do things like that and ads. Um, I it definitely depends, and I think that's a good way to put it. But I'm happy that you are getting something out of that because I do hear some people that do go to college and maybe they get a job that they don't like and then they become a real estate agent super
Yeah.
later in their life, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just did wonder specifically if you thought the degree was necessary. Um, but
Yeah, I
it's
mean, it's definitely not necessary.
Right. But
But
you definitely got something out of it and you enjoyed it and you're using
yeah,
it. That's
and
good.
I went to cheaper community colleges, which was great. So I don't have a lot of debt,
Hmm.
um, which was a huge advantage. Um, but I will say that I think the best agents have a sales background and have worked in some kind of sales. I've noticed that the ones that just start right away and they just take off like crazy. There's one on my team that's had 10 years of sales experience and she's
Wow.
just doing amazing. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that helped and the sales classes did help.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, you don't,
would you say that experience then, whether it be from college or another job, do you think that like is necessary, or do you also think that the barrier of entry is, simple, and you would recommend, just getting your license as soon as possible? Do you still stand by what you said earlier?
yeah, I mean, I'd get your license as soon as possible. I think if you're willing to learn and work your butt off, I mean, anybody can do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Um, so another question I did have was specifically about the pandemic, and kind of like our market and how it's looking, uh, obviously globally, um, or locally, in your experience. But do you think the pandemic was good or bad for real estate? I know it's
Uh,
a. I know you're not one of those complete experts,
yeah.
economists and stuff like that. But generally speaking, I think it's good to hear local stories, especially for a lot of people that are, across maybe in California or Florida and things like that. From an Ohio person, like, do you think it was good or bad for the real estate industry in your
I mean,
instance?
I guess it depends on what side you're on. I mean, if you're looking to sell your house, it's great. You can sell it in a day. But then you can't move anywhere because you can't find a house to buy.
Right.
So it's kind of scary. And a lot of people talk about the bubble and all that. And I'm not an economist. I don't know all the answers. But just what we've seen in Ohio, it's been pretty crazy. If
Hmm.
I'd say if you're going to get your real estate license in 2021, prepare to put 6 months of work in or have another job. Um, but yeah, it's I don't know if I suppose COVID had a big effect on it, um, with people moving out of cities and the cost of materials going crazy.
Hmm.
But we were already in a crazy real estate market, so it's just gone up a lot more, a lot quicker than it normally would have.
So, do you think, in your experience, that we're in a housing bubble?
I honestly, in my, I mean, my experience is limited,
Yeah,
but
I know
from
your
what I'm
experience is
seeing,
limited, but honestly, your experience, you have a lot more experience than a lot of the people that are watching this video, or maybe maybe they're just interested to hear your perspective. Maybe they have tons of experience, but they want to hear someone's experience. Keep using that word. Someone's experience from Ohio, from
yeah,
a local area, because you don't live in the biggest
right,
area, and things are a lot different when we go to these bigger cities. So
yeah,
I
it's true.
guess, do you think that we're in a bubble? That was, or maybe
I
just
don't,
locally? No,
I don't
you
think
don't.
we're in a bubble. I, I mean, it'll go up. The real estate market goes up and it goes down. And in college, I flipped a couple houses and I have a rental property now, and I'm involved in real estate investing, and that gives a really interesting perspective on uh, the economy and the real estate market. But I don't think we're in a bubble. I don't think it's going to just all of a sudden come crashing down unless some huge major world crisis happens.
Right.
Obviously, it's going to slow down sometime, but um, yeah, it's not slowing down in Ohio yet.
So you did a fantastic deep dive video for locally, and you did your research. And when I watched the video, I was really surprised with how you used the inventory example, and how you talked a little bit about how you have, what was that number you said? A certain amount of inventory. What was that term you used? And
The months of inventory available. Yeah,
yes, yes. So could you explain a little bit about what that is and kind of what that means, and kind of how that proves, what you were saying a little bit earlier?
yeah. Well, I hope I can explain this
In
effectively here.
simplest
So
terms, in simplest
simplest
terms.
terms, yeah.
Yeah.
So months of inventory is the number that a lot of people look at as kind of an accurate representation of how the market's doing.
Hmm.
And so, what months of inventory is, there are a certain number of houses for sale online and a certain number of houses that come for sale every month.
Hmm.
And if all those houses were to sell out, just go out of stock, real estate goes out of stock, there's nothing available, how long would it take? How many months would it take for every house listed for sale to sell out? And last month it was about 1.5 to 2 months, which is crazy low.
Hmm.
The average for a balanced market, they talk about buyer's market and seller's market. Well,
Hmm.
for a balanced market, it's about 7 months.
Hmm.
So that means if you have a lot of houses for sale, it would take 7 months for all those houses to sell out with nothing new coming on. But we were in about 1.5 months of inventory,
Wow.
which means that there are very few listings available,
Hmm.
and housing prices will go up, they'll skyrocket.
Hmm.
And it's great to sell your house. It's a great seller's market, but it's not great to buy your house.
Right. Right.
So,
Well, that's a great explanation, because I think a lot of people, they don't fully understand that, and they also don't fully understand the law of supply and demand,
yeah.
the law that literally determines everything that we do in our lives.
Yep.
And I think that is a great example of kind of what's going on right now. So I appreciate that answer. Um, so to take, I guess I'd have one more question and then another question. But the one question I had was, so you are a full-time agent, correct?
Yeah.
You work full-time hours. Okay.
Yep.
Now we have a lot of people that do part-time, full-time, and obviously it depends on needs, things like that. But looking back, would you have recommended in this current market, let's say you got your license, would you say that you would stick with what you did, just go pedal to the metal, go full time? Or do you think that in the current market, where you are at, would you have rather gone part time, kept another job, or, what is your thoughts on that?
Um, I mean, for me, I have a little bit of savings saved up,
Hmm.
and so I can go for 3 to 6 months. So I would do full time again.
Hmm.
Um, but if you need to keep a more steady income, currently 2021, yeah, part time would be kind of a good idea because it's going to take 3 to 6 months to build it
Hmm.
up. But yeah, I love being full time. It kind of forced me to either um, sink or swim. Like I either make it happen in the next 6 months or I have to find another job.
Yeah.
So,
Right. So then I guess the follow up and the final question, similar to our last video, is if there's one thing that you would recommend or one piece of advice that you would give people for starting out, whether it be their first month or their third or fourth, what would it be?
ooh, yikes. Um, I mean, it is hard work, so be prepared to do hard work. But honestly, if you find a great team leader or a mentor and you follow their advice and you work really hard and you stick with it, um, I think you can do anything if you work hard and you stick with it. But yeah, advice, just be prepared to work really hard.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I mean, not just for real estate, but for whatever you want to do. You want to work hard. Well, I should say you want, but you need to work hard if you're going to be successful. I mean, it's tough out there, and people have to be prepared. So I'm glad that you gave them a little sip of reality, or a little, peek of, kind of what it's like after your first couple months. I'd love to have you back on here maybe a year from now or 2 years from
Yeah,
now,
that'd be great.
when you're driving a Rolls Royce, and and you're like, oh yeah, this
Yeah,
is what I learned after a year or two.
yeah.
No, but really, I really appreciate you coming on here. Thank you so much. It really helps everybody, especially the people that are in the same boat that you went through a couple months ago. So again, thank you. I really
Well,
appreciate it.
yeah. I mean, thanks for having me. I appreciate you having your course and your business, getting me through test and exam and everything. So that's been a huge help.
Great. Awesome. No problem. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you really enjoyed this content. Comments, questions, all that good stuff, leave them down below. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, it's Zach from realestatelicensewizard.com. Make today magical. See you guys next time.